So one of the things I've talked about at length is what an incredible offseason it's been. We've seen so many coaching moves, and there are so many first-year head coaches in college football right now that I legitimately can't wait to see them take their program and mold it into their own. It's going to be a ton of fun, but today we need to talk about a couple of first-year head coaches going head-to-head on the recruiting trail as Brent Venables and Dan Lanning are finding themselves in the same battles over and over again, and today we need to dissect two of those battles, one for a player that is not committed and one that's committed to the Oklahoma Sooners but could soon flip. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no, and considering Ashton Cozart took a visit to the Oregon Ducks while committed to Oklahoma, do you believe it's only a matter of time before he flips? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, like and comment down below as those interactions are massive. But having said all that, let's jump right into this, and we're going to start with Ashton Cozart, considering he's a top 200 player in all of high school football and currently committed to the Oklahoma Sooners. Ashton Cozart is a bigger body wide receiver who's got a ton of upside. He's someone who I was able to watch at the Battle 7-on-7 event a couple months back here in Dallas, and he was very impressive. He's got a lot that you like to see and a lot to add in to whichever offense ends up getting him, and because of that, he is going to be a coveted prospect. So it made absolute sense that the Oklahoma Sooners were so excited about getting him in, adding him into this, because he fits the mold Lebby wants to do. Bigger wide receivers who are able to move, who are still able to affect a defense with their explosiveness, and Cozart was able to supply that for you. Fast forward to now, and it seems that recruitment might not be as solid as once thought, because Cozart is currently on a visit to the Oregon Ducks. Dan Lanning has put Oregon in the midst of a ton of top battles, and even flipped a prospect many believed was USC bound in 2022 five-star Josh Connerly Jr. So Dan Lanning has already had his fair share of wins on the recruiting trail, and I think we can expect that to continue. What he's trying to build in Oregon right now is a little bit unique, because we look at the Big 12 right now. Oklahoma and Texas are currently on a move to the SEC. When that happens, we're not 100% certain, but we do know it's happening. When we look at the Pac-12, there's a lot more open-ended space for a team to really cement themselves as that team. USC is one that a lot of the national pundits are focused on right now, but do not sleep on Oregon and Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is trying to bring an SEC-style ferociousness, physicality, and the defense he just ran with Georgia to the Pac-12, and if he's able to implement that, that could be USC's kryptonite and vice versa. What I'm trying to say is that could lead to some awesome battles, but it also makes complete sense when we see individuals be interested in the Oregon Ducks. If we look at Oklahoma, a lot can be said that's similar. Oklahoma updates their coaching staff to a coaching staff they believe can find success in the SEC. Brent Venables has been with Clemson, coached some hard-nosed defenses there. Todd Bates from the state of Alabama played with the Alabama Crimson Tide and then went on to coach with Brent Venables in Clemson, all meaning that they have some level of familiarity with the SEC country. So they feel very good about establishing an SEC culture in the Big 12 before they make that move. So it completely made sense when recruits are still very intrigued about what's happening in Norman. Suffice to say, you have two brands right now in the Oklahoma Sooners and the Oregon Ducks that are making intriguing moves and are on a trajectory that I find to be very positive. And so because of that, it makes complete sense where an Ashton Cozart, who's committed to Oklahoma, may be curious about Oregon, especially when Ashton Cozart is from that area. He's someone that moved from the Pacific Northwest to Texas. So if he is to flip to Oregon, this would be a great win for the Oregon Ducks. But what would this mean for the Oklahoma Sooners? And luckily for the Sooners, you have done great work in the transfer portal. Don't get me wrong, you absolutely still want wide receiver prospects in the class of 2023, and as far as I understand it, Ashton Cozart still plans to take official visits to the Oklahoma Sooners, so even if he decommits, this isn't a done deal. But the Oklahoma Sooners have a few things going for them, and they are this. First and foremost, you have a quarterback in your 23 class who's a fringe five-star guy. Remember, we've talked about if he camps well, if he has a good senior season, it wouldn't be surprising at all to see Jackson Arnold end up as a five-star. He's that close. On top of that, the Oklahoma Sooners have been very successful in the transfer portal, and I understand the transfer guys have more experience, and because of that, you still want to get in these high school prospects where you technically have at least 4 years. But at the same time, Oklahoma has been quite successful here recently in Hester and then Bunkley Shelton at getting in guys who have experience but still have a lot of eligibility left, especially with the COVID season. You feel really good about getting those two in. And I'm not saying they're the reason that Ashton Cozart is looking elsewhere, because they have so much experience left and because Oklahoma feels good about the wide receivers they got in the class prior. When you mix it all together, I think there are big things to come. But it is an interesting thing to realize, is that I always talk about the transfer portal being a pendulum. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Oklahoma gets two wide receivers from the transfer portal that I think are going to be really, really great additions, and now they're in a situation where they may lose one in their 23 cycle. As much as you'd love to keep Kozart because you got those two wins in the transfer portal, it absolutely lessens the blow. A blow that may not even be dealt. We also need to understand all things could happen, and he could end up in Oklahoma's class. This is recruiting. These guys want to take visits. It's completely natural. It's just part of the fun. So this is going to be an intriguing battle, and I think it's very interesting, and I think it's very indicative and telling that right now, whenever you're looking at some of these first-year head coaches, they're prominently in a lot of these battles. We look at Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, who's recruiting at an incredibly high level. Notre Dame typically starts off very fast, or at least they have the previous few cycles. It's going to be interesting to see how they can maintain it, but you also look at a Brent Venables, you look at a Dan Lanning, and you can tell there's a lot of excitement across college football and even at the high school level as to the future of those programs. You constantly are seeing both of those names be attached to multiple big battles in the high school to college football recruiting scene, and I think that's very telling about what recruits are thinking about these two destinations. So, this is something we're going to have to watch. In a perfect world, Oklahoma would love to keep Ashton Cozart a part of this class. He's in close proximity right now to Jackson Arnold. They do have some level of familiarity with each other, even though they don't play together. They're from only an hour apart. And on top of that, he's a top 200 prospect in the nation. And even though Oklahoma has been quite successful in the transfer portal, you absolutely still need to recruit in top talent from the high school ranks, and that's exactly what Ashton Cozart is. He also fits the mold Lebby wants to do. However, if he does indeed flip to Oregon, Oregon is getting a very talented prospect, like I said, top 200 in the nation, bigger body wide receiver, who doesn't have a lack of explosiveness to go along with that bigger frame, and because of that, that makes him a very intriguing prospect. For Oregon, it would be a great win, and for Oklahoma, the additions you've made in the transfer portal would soften the blow if he was to decommit. And briefly to finish this out, the other individual we need to talk about is three-star safety out the state of Texas, Tyler Turner. And this is intriguing because he has a top two of Oklahoma and Oregon, once again reinforcing everything I just said, that there's a palpable excitement around these two programs. This is one we have to watch. Oklahoma offers the closer proximity, but do not sleep on Oregon. They have got a lot to offer, and they're generating a ton of excitement. Another battle we've got to keep up with, as this is a very talented prospect, and don't let the star ranking fool you. This is one every institution would love to get. So, very interesting situation. Really interested in hearing from all of you, especially because Oklahoma and Brent Venables have that policy where if you're committed, you can't take visits. This is going to be very interesting to see the repercussions of that. I absolutely don't think they're going to stop recruiting Ashton Cozart. Brent Venables knows, even though he wants his guys that are committed to stay committed, not take visits, this is still a 17-year-old kid. He understands this process is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and if the kid wants to go through it, I have no reason to believe that Brent Venables would hold that against him and stop recruiting him. He would just open up recruiting to other individuals. At least that's my thought. I could be very wrong. If I am, drop it down in the comments. We'll have that conversation, but let me know what you're thinking about this. Can't wait to see what happens when recruiting really heats up, and you already know we're about to start having those conversations. That's it. See ya.